Hello, everyone. Going here. Welcome to our quick 30-minute webinar. My name is Phil Corbin, Director of Sales and Marketing here at Variphy. I'm here today with Dan Schmidt and Victor Verba, our superstar systems engineers. And in today's webinar, we're going to cover Cisco CDR reporting, more specifically, how you can easily build capacity utilization widgets and reports. We're going to start off with a quick overview of Variphy and what we do. We'll then jump into a live demo, show you an in-depth view of our CDR reporting tool, see how you can create capacity widgets and reports. We'll pause for Q&A, get some of your questions answered. During the demo, if you have any questions, make sure to ask them in the Q&A panel at the bottom right of the screen. After Q&A, we're going to reward one lucky attendee a $50 Amazon gift card. So hang around to see what you may have won. Quick overview of Variphy. We are the preferred analytics and management solution for Cisco collaboration. We provide industry-leading CDR reporting and analytics, customizable dashboards and widgets, CCX reporting, remote phone control, change management, DID and DN, dial plan management. But today we're going to focus on CDR-specific capacity utilization reporting. If you have any other questions on any of our other features, we can most definitely take them offline and get those answered. So thank you for joining us. Let's take a look at CDR reporting in action. We have Vic, also known as CDR Jesus, here to show us the way. Vic?
Hey, thank you, Phil. I appreciate that. If you want to go ahead and pass that ball over, we'll go ahead and get started.
Great.
All right. Hey, guys, I want to thank everybody for attending today. The purpose of today's session is to really kind of discuss a little bit about capacity utilization. So capacity utilization is looking at things, what we'll focus on today is going to really be built around gateway utilization. The idea of not just looking at total call counts coming into a center or going out of a center, but looking at how many actual channels are being utilized at those gateways. Total call counts are great, and they're great for being able to show volume from the business unit level, how many calls are coming in, how many calls are going out. But when you're really looking for capacity, or you're really looking to try to determine, are you over trunked? Are you under trunked? Are we coming close to capacity during our busy days or busy weeks or busy months and things of that nature? That's where capacity utilization is going to come in. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and walk you through a quick demonstration on how to go ahead and build some capacity utilization widgets, focusing on SIP gateways. These could be T1 gateways, H323. And then we're going to go ahead and walk through building some just general reports that are going to be able to provide some of those same capacity utilizations that we'll see in a widget, but can also be scheduled daily, weekly, monthly, and go a little bit above and beyond. So the first thing we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to go ahead and build a capacity utilization widget that's going to look very similar to what we see on the screen here. So to start, I'm going to go ahead and just kind of create a new dashboard. For that, I just click on the new dashboard, and we'll just call this capacity. All right. Next thing I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to actually turn on permalinking. So what permalinking is going to allow us to do is then build this dashboard with our criteria and share that dashboard out via a permalink. So let's save that, and it's going to pop me into a blank screen here. First thing we're going to go ahead and do is go ahead and create a new widget. So for this, we're going to use our CUCM analytics. And then we're going to select our widget type. You'll notice several different options for widget types. For this particular widget, we're going to go ahead and use our utilization concurrent call activity. And then we're going to select our Cisco cluster, and we'll go ahead and hit next. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and walk through a couple samples. We're going to build a capacity utilization widget built around a single SIP gateway. Now keep in mind, this doesn't have to be a SIP gateway. This could be, like I said, a T1, an H323, a PRI, or really any other type of device that we want to be able to develop some capacity utilization on. So we'll just call this SIP primary. And we're going to go ahead and change our aggregate right here over to 60 minutes. This is just a personal preference to go ahead and start with. And I'll go ahead and show you how we edit this down and show to provide some more granular aggregates. So the next thing we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to go to our search sets on the left-hand side, and we're going to create a call detail records search. Now, when you're looking at capacity utilization, it's important to make sure that we are not just searching on a call originating on a particular gateway or a call terminating on a particular gateway. For capacity utilization, it's important to make sure that we have both of those options selected. So we'll just call this guy, we'll just give this guy a simple name. We'll call him primary. And from the search criteria, what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to actually filter on a device name. In a moment, we're going to go ahead and create a couple widgets, and I'll show you some other options that we can filter on to be able to develop capacity utilization. So for this, I'm going to go ahead and just type in name, and that's going to bring up several options. I can search on the originating device name, in other words, any call coming into this particular gateway. I can search on any call terminating on this particular gateway. But because it is capacity utilization, I really need to see capacity at both. Each one of those, either an inbound call or an outbound call, is going to be using a channel. So we're going to go ahead and focus in on both that originating and terminating device name. I'm going to click the Add Criteria button, and it's going to ask me, well, what do I want to go ahead and search on? So for this particular example, we're going to go ahead and search our primary SIP gateway here, and we're going to go ahead and set some time information. So we're going to go run this guy, and we'll say we were going to want capacity utilization for the current and the previous week. So from a capacity utilization perspective, that's it. So let's go ahead and take a look at our results here. So now what we're seeing, very simply within just a matter of a few moments, we've been able to create a capacity utilization widget that's going to go ahead and allow us to view our SIP gateway and how we're utilizing that capacity throughout the day, each hour of the day, individual days of the week. And then we can go ahead and edit these guys down. Let's say, for example, I wanted to focus in on my 3-3 gateways. My 3-3 date, I could go ahead and uncheck those and see how I trended throughout that particular day. So the nice thing is again, very quickly, we just went ahead and created a capacity utilization for a single gateway. Now, maybe I have multiple gateways. Maybe I want to be able to monitor SIP capacity utilization over all of my SIP gateways. Very simple to do within the Variphy application. Anybody that's familiar with our application, one of the nice things that we do is we actually read your call manager. So rather than you trying to input your SIP gateways into the Variphy system, our SIP information is going to come directly from your call manager. So let's go ahead and expand on this guy. So now we've got one capacity utilization report. Well, you know what? Maybe we want to change some times. We can go ahead and do that. So maybe my business hours are normally about 8 a.m. to about 6 p.m. So we'll go ahead and change this to 5, and let's save that guy, and that's going to go ahead and quickly update. So now we've got a capacity utilization that's really focused in on our business hours and giving us a nice drill in to be able to see how our primary SIP gateway is utilizing, how many channels we're utilizing. Now keep in mind, what we're showing here is not a total count of calls coming into these gateways. This is actually how many channels are being utilized over this SIP gateway. So when you're talking about planning capacity, like I kind of said in the beginning, the total volume going over these gateways is not necessarily the most important thing. It's how many calls are going on concurrently that are using those channels that is the most important factor. So let's expand on this guy. This is great for having one gateway, and it's got all the criteria and information and business hours that I have. So from the Variphy perspective, we can go ahead and make a copy of this and just build another one for another SIP gateway. So right now, I just quickly made a copy. If I edit this guy, it already has the criteria I'm looking for. I can go ahead and pump in another gateway, save that. And now I have 2 widgets bringing back 2 total different subsets of data. Very quickly, very easily, these can be resized, moved around, and changed to be able to meet your particular needs. Now, another great thing with Variphy, like I had mentioned before, is we have the ability to go ahead and read your call manager. So none of these gateways are actually input into the Variphy system. So another way to be able to build something like this, and let's say, for example, I've got these 2 SIP gateways. This is great information that I have here, but you know what? I also want a big picture. I want to see what all my SIP gateways are doing in total. I know I have X number of channels. One of these gateways may be a rollover. So a cumulative example of how all these gateways are working is going to be a great way for me to be able to say, hey, you know what? We're sized appropriately based on our 2 gateways and our rollover. So let's go ahead and make a copy of this guy. We're going to go ahead and add one more widget in here. So rather than focusing or having to input all of my SIP gateways into a report, which is very easy, I could go ahead and do something like this and then just add my secondary or my primary gateway in here, and it's going to go ahead and give me results. Alternatively, one of the ways that I like to be able to do something like this when I'm looking for a total accumulation is rather than focusing on the individual gateway name, is focusing on the type of device that I'm looking for. So all I'm doing is changing my search criteria, and rather than focusing on the specific device name, I'm just going to choose the originating or terminating device type. So one of the benefits of having Variphy is you have this option. So right here, we're going to go ahead and pop a list of device types. Now, if I type in SIP, I have the option to be able to add my SIP trunks. So by doing this, I've encompassed both of my SIP gateways into a single widget, and I'll be able to provide detailed information on the big picture. In other words, how are all of my SIP gateways performing overall? So it's a great way to be able to, one, show individual SIP gateways, but two, also be able to show a cumulative of all of my SIP gateways. And anytime we can edit these down. Change names. We can aggregate these more if we want to be able to dip into the metrics a little bit deeper and find out some very pinpoint information between 120 and 129. I can see I peaked at about 15 channels being used out of all of my SIP gateways. So other nice thing about this information here is this is not just for you. There's other people that may need to see this information. One, you can provide them a login. You can go ahead and share this dashboard. If I wanted to give this dashboard to another end user, I can provide them this dashboard. But I also enabled what was called permalinking when we first created this dashboard. So with permalinking, what we're going to gives us the ability to do is go ahead and send this static link over to any particular user and give them the ability to go ahead and see that same capacity utilization that you're seeing there. So it's a great way to be able to share information. This link is static. It will not change. The content may change as the dashboard owner changes information or adds additional widgets, but your content will always remain the same, and they'll be able to share that information. So from the dashboard perspective and the widget perspective, it's that easy to go ahead and create a capacity utilization on individual widgets or on all your individual SIP gateways or all of your gateways. So the next thing I'm going to go ahead and do is we're going to go ahead and build out some reports that are going to give us the same type of information. So the first thing I'll do is I'm going to pop over to our call analytics and reporting, and I'm going to go over to my report section in this case. So from here, I'm going to go ahead and create a new report. We'll call this capacity. So again, one of the nice things about having a system like Variphy is the flexibility and the ease of use, not having to go through and specify each gateway. If you're using T1s or you're using PRIs, that could be a lot of gateway information. Every S0 device might have to go into the report or something of that nature. So with Variphy and our ability to go ahead and actual query your call manager, we greatly simplify that process. So what we're going to go ahead and build out in this particular example is going to be a capacity utilization report that's going to be geared towards all of my SIP gateways. And on this report, we're going to give you a high-level overview of utilization against all your gateways, but then we're also going to go ahead and break down on that same report each individual gateway. So let's go ahead and get started. Much like we built that widget, the first thing we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to go ahead and pick on that device type. So we're going to choose our originating or terminating device type, and we're just going to punch in SIP. So there's our SIP trunk. So for this widget, we're going to bring back all of our SIP information. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to go to our search sets and we're going to say, hey, what do we want to see? If I want to see total counts against all my gateways, I can go ahead and turn that on, and that'll give me a nice summary of all of the calls coming in. But like I said, for a SIP capacity utilization, a lot of times that total count is not what you're looking for, but we're going to go ahead and leave that in here in this case just so you can kind of see what it looks like. What we're really focused in on here under our search sets are going to be our capacity utilization widgets. So right down here, we're going to go ahead and enable the concurrent call activity charts, and we're going to go ahead and enable the current call activity tables. So what we're doing here by adjusting our search sets is we're including information based on our search. Our search is going to be all SIP gateways. But to expand on that, we don't want a report that's just going to show us all of our SIP gateways. We want to see that. It's pertinent information, but we also want to get a little bit more granular. We want to know what's happening at each individual SIP gateway as well. So for that, we're going to go ahead and enable data grouping. So under data grouping, think of it like a secondary layer of summary information. Our first summary information is going to come off of our search. Our second summary information is going to come off of our grouping. So for this example, what do we want to group on? Well, we need to be able to see those devices. So we're going to go ahead and group on the device names. And all I'm going to do is punch in name, and it'll bring up all of our originating or terminating device names. So we're filtering on only originating or terminating devices of SIP type trunks. And now we're going to go ahead and also report on the individual name for those SIP type trunks. We have the option to go ahead and include some detail on each one of those trunks, or we can go ahead and turn that off. But you'll notice down here towards the bottom, we have the ability to go ahead and add capacity utilization here as well. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this guy on. And this is going to go ahead and give us that granular level of being able to look at all the capacity utilization at each one of our gateways. That's going to be our data center, SIP gateway, as well as our primary. Because this is a capacity utilization report, I'm going to go ahead and turn off detail in this case because it may be a lot of detail, and I don't necessarily need to see 10 or 20,000 calls. So let's go ahead and give this guy a save, and we're going to give it a quick run. So all I'm going to do is hit the play button here, and then we can adjust our time format. We can adjust our formats of the report, download it, email it, but we're going to adjust our time window, and we're going to look at the current and previous week again. Here we go. And I have our time zone set here, and let's give this guy a run. So essentially what it's doing in the background right now is it's reading our database, but it's also going out to Call Manager to read and pull back what are all of our SIP trunks. So once we establish what all of our SIP trunks are, we then marry that information to the call data and bring back a report exactly like what we're looking at here. So remember in the very beginning, I chose to include my call count. Well, I wanted to know how many call counts came in through my SIP device. Not necessarily super pertinent when you're talking about sizing, but also important value. If we didn't want to see the call count for my SIP gateways, that's something we can easily go ahead and turn off. Also what it did is it went through and it said, based on our search of all SIP trunks, we can see that we peaked at 15 concurrent calls. That 15 concurrent calls lasted for about 5 seconds. Throughout the life of my report or the span of my report, in other words, the previous and current week, I average about almost 1 concurrent call. All right. So then we break down graphically what the information looks like at all of our SIP gateways. And of course, I ran this report blanket for 24 hours. You can filter down to your specific business hours. And there's our days of the week. And here's our concurrent activity streams. Again, we're showing each individual activity stream for our different time frames here. We can see March 1st through March 7th, and then we'll roll over to March 8th through March 11th. But we're also going to be able to show you, again, keeping in mind, this is for our total capacity against all of our SIP gateways, how you're actually utilizing those gateways. So what we're looking at here are the concurrent call activity, the time and the amount of time that many concurrent calls are taking place, and what percentage of time window. So keep in mind, this is for the previous and the current week. So we can see that 73.2% of the time, we really just had a single call going on. And as we can continue to go down this, we can actually see how much we're actually utilizing that much capacity. So I had 5 concurrent calls. In other words, I was using 5 channels out of all my SIP gateways for about 3.6% of the last 2 weeks. But like I said, by enabling that grouping, the next thing we did is we said, don't only just show us how we're doing at a very high level, in other words, all of our SIP gateways, also break down each individual SIP gateway. The nice thing about this is when you're dealing with something like an H323 or a T1 or PRIs, you may have a lot of those types of devices. You don't want to have to add each one of them to the report. So by just choosing the SIP type and turning on the grouping of originating or terminating device, we will list all of those T1s or those PRIs. We will show you the capacity streams available. We'll show you the average stream utilization, what percentage of utilization you're actually using, as well as the peak, what percentage of capacity you're using out of your 30 for that peak, as well as how long that lasted, and then the total volume of calls that you have coming in on each one of those. So very quickly and very easily, we were able to go ahead and see a high level of all of our SIP gateways, but also break that same information down to each individual SIP gateway. We chose to include graphical representations for each one of our SIP gateways. So on this same report, we're going to see each data center or each primary device based on the date time frames that we chose. We'll also go ahead and show the concurrent activity charts, keeping in mind that each one of these charts we chose to activate in the report just by saying, hey, this is information that we want to see. I want to be able to see the activity tables, or I want to be able to see the chart information. So that's not necessarily, it's not something you need to include, but in this particular example, we wanted to go ahead and give you the high level. So going down, we'll see a breakdown of each individual SIP gateway and how it was used, the percentage of time that you're using those many channels, and things like that. So this is a great way to very easily get an entire picture of how your entire organization gateways are performing based off of a simple search. Now, like I said, keep in mind, I was using just SIP gateway in this example because that's what I have within my demo system here, but it doesn't have to just be your SIP gateways. This could be a capacity report for your entire company. So right here, I'm searching SIP trunk. Well, maybe, you know what? Maybe I want to add my T1s in here also. Or maybe I need to add my H323s in here also. So by just adding those additional devices, Variphy will automatically go out to your call manager, pull all those device associations, but then also list each one of those devices out in this report. And again, keep in mind for this particular example, the only ones that I'm utilizing are my SIP gateways, but what you would have in this report is a list, total count for each one of your particular devices that you chose, but we'll also go ahead and list out the capacity utilization, stream availability on each one of these particular types of gateways. So all of that in your mixed environment can be produced on a single report, or it could be split up to say, hey, just particular gateways or just H323s. So it's a great way to be able to have the flexibility to show everything at a very high level, but also to get granular enough to be able to say, hey, what are each one of my individual gateways doing? So other things that you can do besides looking at just capacity utilization. So capacity utilization goes beyond your gateways. Looking at a gateway and seeing the big picture is a great way to be able to understand, hey, how are we performing? How is this particular gateway performing or something of that nature? But if you're going to be making some changes in your environment, it's also important to know where that information is coming from. In other words, it's great to know that I peaked at 15 concurrent calls, but who are my biggest culprits? Do I have a particular location that is using more capacity than another location? So utilizing Variphy and some of the grouping options, you do have the ability to get much more granular. So you can actually say, hey, show me a capacity utilization report, but maybe based off of all of my device pools. In other words, maybe I need to have a location that is using much more many channels than another location, and perhaps they need their own T1, or perhaps I need to get them off the T1 faster and move them onto a SIP gateway as companies start to migrate with SIP gateways. So one of the things we're going to go ahead and do is I urge everybody to navigate over to variphy.com and go over to our webinars section. So right under company and webinars, our next webinar, April 1st, is we're going to go ahead and take a look at capacity utilization beyond just monitoring your gateways. We're going to look at how capacity utilization could help monitor maybe your native call queues. In other words, how many calls do I have on average sitting in a queue at the same time? Or maybe how many times do my 5 operators, are they on the phone at the same time throughout the day, week, or month? Things like that are what we're going to go ahead and show in our next webinar on April 1st. So I urge everybody to go ahead and register. And we're going to take a little bit deeper and dive into capacity utilization and how you guys can use it beyond just monitoring your gateways. So I want to thank everybody for attending, and I'm going to go ahead and pass the ball back to you.
Right on. Thank you, Vic.
You bet. On your way to Dan.
Thanks, Vic. Excellent job as always. Monitoring a few questions coming in. Just a few. The first question comes from Frank. He wants to know, does this data get derived directly from the gateway? So with all of our call analytics features that are seen, the CDR derived from call manager. So that CDR itself contains the originating or terminating device names. So we're strictly just looking at that. So all this data is actually derived from the CUCM CDR data. No link directly into the actual gateway. Second question from a Nancy. Nancy asks, if I want a more refined widget for a specific gateway, how can I find the names of my gateways? So Nancy, this could happen one of a few different ways. The easiest, simple way is to actually use the call history search tool within our application. This would automatically parse your originating or terminating device name used. And so those are actually found and fed straight from Call Manager. Call Manager would either take it as a gateway device name from, I believe it's within your device gateways or device trunks area menu of Call Manager based off the type of gateway. You may see associated endpoints to that gateway. Those would commonly be referred to or seen as an entry kind of starting with like a S0/SU. That's simply just the interface ID or the endpoint of an interface on that gateway. So that would also replicate into the CDR as well. So those are the device names that you would want to specifically tag if you don't want to encompass multiple at the same time. And Deborah, actually, good question here. We'll kind of hit this more on the April 1st webinar, but actually, a question did come in regarding hunt groups and the use of capacity utilization for hunt groups. So really brief. I don't want to steal the thunder from the next session, but yes, what we saw today, it's all CDR driven. So as long as that hunt group information is in the CDR, so the hunt pilot information and or queuing based information, right? That is all based off in the CDR. We'll show you how to do that in the next session, but yes, as a short answer. Those are the only 3 questions yet in the Q&A panel. Any other questions from any of the attendees that I can help out with today? All right. If there is no other questions, Phil, I'll pass it back over to you here.
Right.
We'll wrap up a little bit early.
Great. Again, if you think of a question after the webinar, please reach out to Vic, Dan, or myself. We'll get those questions answered. All right. The moment we've all been waiting for. The winner of our $50 Amazon gift card is Todd Walters. Thank you for joining us today. Your account manager will be in contact with you shortly, how we can get that gift card to you. Again, thanks for joining us. We have weekly webinars on Wednesdays. To see all we have to offer, go to verify.com/company/webinars and register for upcoming webinars. Also, if you're interested in any other features we offer, reach out to your account manager or hit up our free trial page and get going on those features. So once again, thanks a lot. Have a great day.